In today's video, we're going to be doing something extra cool. I have right here the gold version of the first series Apple Watch. There weren't that many of these made compared to the rest. Now this watch is in pretty good shape. Overall, the screen is perfect. It is sapphires, so it's going to be a little bit more resistant to scratching and breaks and things like that. The back's great. The frame's good. It's all good, except for it's not working. If you haven't yet taken an Apple Watch apart, this isn't something that I would recommend doing. This is a fairly complicated procedure. You'll see what I mean in just a second. Let's get started. Now this watch isn't working correctly, but I do happen to have another Series 1, exact same model, except not the gold version, with a working logic board. So we're just going to be switching that out and putting it in this so we can have a beautiful gold looking watch once again. Now right off the bat I can notice there's a substantial difference in weight between the gold and the regular Series 1. This video will be a demonstration of basically a teardown of two watches, which if you're needing to fix anything inside the watch, it'll give you the opportunity to get to that point where you can solder on those connectors. So on this magnet mat here, I'm quickly just drawing an outline of the watches so that I have a way to organize the screws a little bit better. And then carefully with this super flexible pry tool and this plastic sheet, I'll be able to pop the screen off and slide and cut the adhesive. Now this first watch came off super easy. The screen came off super easy. And in general, on the sapphire screens, they're much tougher to get off. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's simply because Apple wants them to last longer, be more water resistant. I'm not sure. But basically, the adhesive on all of the sapphire is much more difficult to open. Which I find to be nice. I just wish they would do that with all of them to make them all even. But once I've gotten my plastic piece in there, I'm able to slide it around and pull that off. One other thing that this watch had that was probably one of the causes of it having an issue was a swollen battery, but that wasn't the issue that prevented it from working. There was something else going on with it. Here's my little tool from my friend Zach at Jerry Rig Everything that I like to use. I'm going to pop off those connectors and take this screen off, examine it, make sure we didn't do any harm to it. And then using a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, we're going to be able to remove the battery. It loosens the adhesive under the battery and helps pry it out easier. And we'll flip the battery over and disconnect it. It's easier to disconnect from the backside. Next, we're going to go ahead and just start removing the screws that we can see, keeping them in order so that when we go to put it back together, we will have the chance to do it without issue. A couple of the screws are harder to access without removing the taptic engine portion. But some, if you're careful enough, you can get them to remove. Like this corner one right here, it's going to be a little trickier to remove, so we may have to wait. Take a little bit more isopropyl alcohol and loosen the flex cable that's adhered to the taptic engine. Carefully going under it with tweezers and alcohol when needed, I am able to remove it. Now I just have to pull off the sticker that's covering the solder joints. Once I have those exposed, I could take a little bit of flux, add those there, and I use my tweezers as kind of a pry tool. I put them in between the flex cables, and I let the natural resistance help lift the flex cables and separate them as the solder liquefies. There's two small flex cables on the bottom of the other larger flex cable that are soldered together, so you basically have to do one at a time. Readjusting the tweezers as needed. Mind you, I'm doing all this under a microscope. It's much easier to see up close and personal the whole time doing these repairs. So I do almost all of the Apple Watch repairs I do under a microscope, just so I'm sure of everything that I'm doing. There we'll be able to go ahead and remove the Taptic engine there. Disconnect the antenna there in the back and pull it off. We'll disconnect the Force Touch connector there, fold it back, and give us access to the microphone bracket and its screws. And the screws also there for the power button. We can remove now that the battery is out. I'm going to add some isopropyl alcohol around the entire underside of the logic board. There are certain areas where it's stuck down and it can cause issues if you don't loosen the adhesive first. And then carefully I'll pry it from one corner. I find that doing it from that corner that you saw is the easiest. And then the trickiest part is just getting this little sensor that works in tandem with the crown to slide out from its because of the adhesive that it's used. But given enough persuasion and patience, you should be able to gently provoke it to slide out. Now we do have a connector under there that we need to flip a latch to and pull out, like that. Hard to see. And then we have these two little wires that run up that are soldered on, so I'm just going to scrape away the little protective covering there. Add some flux. Keep in mind which wire goes where. I'll take one of the wires that I know that's on the right and I'll fold it over. And look, there's what the inside of a gold watch looks like. I'll speed through the second teardown to make this a little bit quicker, but it's exactly what we did before. And there's the inside of a regular Series 1. Now this is where the difference in weight comes into play. Everything else is the same weight. The sapphire glass is a little heavier than the regular glass, but let me see if I can demonstrate how different this is. And by simply spinning it, the magnet mat will slow it down, but you can see that as I spin the regular Series 1, it stops really quickly, and yet the gold one continues to spin because it's heavier. And then I've noticed on all of the basically any of the models that have sapphire, so like the gold one or the stainless steel models, the brackets tend to have a gold color, and I thought it'd be nice to just keep the gold looking brackets with the gold watch. This step isn't necessary if you're swapping the logic board from one to another, but I figured I could do it right then and there, and it'll only take a few minutes. Why not do it? Now the only bracket in all of the sapphire glass watches that isn't the gold color in the Series 1 is the microphone bracket. For some reason they left it silver. So that's the only one that I didn't move over because it was the exact same on the other one. One of the trickier pieces to move over is the for the crown there, the button that actually does the clicking when you push the crown in. It's wedged in between another piece of metal that's flexible, and so it's hard to get that out of there because it's adhered behind it, but definitely doable. So if you're looking to fix a Series 1 that has an issue with the crown or the power button, the flex cables, the microphone, any of those, this getting to this point in the repair is where you need to get to start doing the solder work. So we're going to go ahead and solder those two wires back on, connect that connector into the bottom, and put back all of the screws and the Taptic engine, and basically get it back to the point where we can finish this watch up. One of the things that I also switched over was the battery, because the battery from the gold one was swelling and the battery in the other one wasn't swollen, so I was able to put that battery in to make this gold one last longer, because one of the main pitfalls of the Series 1 is when the batteries expand too much, they do pop the screens off, and the last thing I want is to have this beautiful looking gold watch have the screen pop off at some random point in time. So what I'm doing here is I'm picking at the old adhesive seal that was there. Now that we've cut through it, it no longer has the resistance to hold the screen down. So we'll pull that off to give us a fresh Force Touch cable to adhere to. We'll connect the battery, make sure it's in there. I'm not going to shake around and move around. Connect the display, the sapphire display. And we'll go ahead and test it, make sure it works. And here's the waiting game. Will it work? It turns on, that's good. Let's test the functions. The touch, everything seems to be fine. The Force Touch also works. Alright, all we need to do now is seal it up, put that bracket back. I talked about this adhesive in one of my previous videos where I did the glass repair on a Series 5. If you haven't seen that, check it out. I show how to replace the glass on the newest Apple Watch, and talk a little bit more about the adhesive that I use here in this video. We'll go ahead and put in a bead as best we can around the Force Touch there, and push the glass down on and clamp it down, and then clean up any of the adhesive that seeped out the edges there with some acetone and this clean room wipe. Now go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't already, and subscribe as well for future videos like this. Thanks for watching.